a workout program, you're pushing hard, you've made changes on eating. I mean, you're eating better. You feel like you're doing all the dang right things, but you notice you're just not seeing the fat loss that you really wanted to see for the effort that you put in. Or maybe you are losing some fat, but you're also losing muscle size and strength, and you start asking yourself, oh, is this really the most effective way for me to burn fat and build strength and muscle, or am I just wasting my time and energy? Well, if that's you, if you've been there, you're in the right place. And the thing is, I've been there myself, spending absolutely hours in the gym doing what I thought would work. And at times I would notice strength going up, of course, but of course so would my waistline at times. And other times my waistline would finally start getting smaller, but then so would my arms, my chest, my legs, and all the wrong areas. And it really sucked. I remember being, man, this must have been probably 2009, and I just started leaning up after putting on some muscle, and maybe it's 2008, but it doesn't matter. Regardless, point is, and I remember a good friend of mine, coming over and saying, dang, man, you're looking really lean. And I felt so small because I had lost so much size in my arms, my chest, everything. And I thought, gosh, dang it. Every time that I start getting lean, I feel like all the muscle that I put on, I lose. And if I am able to keep the muscle, then I feel like I can't lose the fat. And it was a round and round we go. So I told him I was, obviously pretty frustrated. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to focus on just staying super lean right now because I just can't seem to do both at the same time. And the sucky thing is, I had been a personal trainer at that time for about 4 years. I knew how to work out. I knew how to kind of eat, but my nutrition was lacking. There were several things that I was really lacking. And then a few years into my personal training career, which again, I think was right around 2010 or 11, where I really, everything finally clicked. And I finally figured out the 6 main things that really helped me to lose more fat and gain more muscle in less time than ever before. So what this meant for me was that now, whenever I was putting on muscle, I was keeping like 90 to 95% of it when I would actually lean up, because I finally realized there were some key things with nutrition and 5 key things pertaining to my workouts that I finally got right. Now, a couple of things I might have had right, but I just couldn't get them all right at all the same time up until this point. And the cool thing is that when I got this dialed in, it made all the difference in the world, and I was finally able to help out hundreds of my clients to do that very same thing. See, before this, I was primarily in weight loss with my clients, and so, training women and men who wanted to just lose fat, no problem. They didn't really care as much about, the physique like I did. They didn't really care about the strength. They didn't really care about the muscle size. So for them, it was no big deal. I was getting great results, and they were looking pretty good. They were shedding fat. I was really, really good at that. But I didn't just want to be a smaller, skinnier version of myself. I felt really insecure. I wanted bigger muscle. I wanted to really look very athletic, like I talked about on my video yesterday. For me, I wanted to look more like that Jason Statham look. I wanted to look like Jean-Claude Van Damme from Bloodsport. Lean, but still really good symmetry and muscle. And I just couldn't get that up until this point. And so today, I'm going to share the 6 strategies that help me and my clients burn more fat and build muscle and strength without wasting time or energy on effective or ineffective methods, okay? So if that's you, stay tuned. You're going to really, really want to see this. And I've got something for you at the very end that's going to help you to get over the confusion like I had to do, so that you can finally stop wasting time and get some real results for the effort that you're putting in. So, key strategies. Let's go ahead and dive in. Very first thing is, and again, let me give you a disclaimer and a preface. If some of these you've heard before, understand I was using 2 or 3 of these things, just not in the right sequence and not all together. So don't dismiss these just because you might have heard before. I want you to check everything at the door and start fresh, so that you're able to absorb all of this. I promise you, it's going to make such a big difference if you will allow it. So, with that being said, the very first one, the first strategy is focusing on progressive overload, okay? So, progressive overload, what we want to do is we want to keep between 0 to 3 reps in reserve, also known as RIR. Now, reps in reserve just means that it basically, the way that I'm going to explain it, is at the end of your set, if I were to offer you $1 million to say, hey, I want you to get a couple more reps. If you can get any more than 3 repetitions for that $1 million, If you can get more than that, you left too many reps on the table or you didn't go heavy enough, okay? So basically what this means is that if I offer you $1 million, the most you should be able to get is 3 reps more than what you finished on that set. If you can do more than that, you went too light, or, well, a couple other things might have happened, but you didn't push hard enough, okay? So that's for the very first thing. So what you want to do is make sure that you're using heavy enough weights to challenge yourself, but without sacrificing form. That is key. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you are using more of what's called ego lifting, where you're just trying to move that weight and it doesn't matter to you about the form, and you're maybe bouncing it off of your chest or you're bouncing yourself down in a squat position, that's going to be part of your issue. So it doesn't matter how much weight you move. What matters is how much weight you control and getting close to that 0 to 3 reps in reserve. Now, progressive overload simply means that we are going to overload your muscles progressively, meaning we're going to go more and more each week, and we're going to increase either your repetitions by 1 to 2 each week or every 2 weeks, or we're going to increase your weight by 1 to 2, maybe even upwards of 3 to 5 pounds as often as we can. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do that, but I'm not going to make this all about progressive overload today. I spoke about that a little bit yesterday and on a few other videos, and I want to keep this moving so we don't make this too long. But what do you do if, for example, a lot of people ask this, well, Lance, you know, I do have good form and I'm not quite getting to that 0 to 3 reps in reserve, but here's my issue. Sometimes I get a heavy enough weight and I feel like it's good form, and then I feel like I can't finish the reps, or I realize, I feel like I could have done another 10, and unfortunately I must have gone too light. What do I do? Well, that's a great question. What do you do if it's too heavy or too light? The very first thing is, if it's too light, you don't need to finish that set. Like if you realize that you're on rep 5 and you're aiming for 15 and you realize you could probably do 30, set it down and get a heavier weight. Now that leads to the next part, which is like, well, yeah, but what if I go too heavy? Good point. If you go too heavy, you simply use what's called a rest pause. Now, a rest pause is where you're going to break mid-set for a few seconds. I normally tell my clients anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds, and then you're going to continue with that same weight. This is known as a rest pause, okay? Now, the second thing that you can do is, if you don't want to use the same weight and use a rest pause, we do what's called a drop set. Now, we're not going to talk about the bodybuilding style of drop sets where we actually do 3 sets in one and it's 6 and then 6 and then 6. We're not going to do that. We're talking about the modified version of a drop set. And all we do is, let's say that you get, if you're aiming for 20 repetitions and you only make it to 15, you're going to set the weight down, and instead of doing a rest pause where you wait 10 seconds to pick up that same weight, you're going to actually immediately go on to the next lightest weight, okay? So if you're using 25s and you go, dang, I couldn't quite get to that full set with all the repetitions, set it down, you're going to grab the next smallest weight. So if I said you were using 25s, you'll use 20s, and you're going to finish, okay? Now, doing this, again, we're training your body to get all of the repetitions, and we're getting as close as we can to that progressive overload, that 0 to 3 reps in reserve, to get to what we call temporary muscle failure. And that is what is going to lead to more muscle gain. And the more muscle we put on you, the faster your metabolism goes, which means more food, more fat loss, more enjoyability, and you look better instead of just being a smaller version, which is why I don't do weight loss anymore. I help people to lose body fat, and yes, you will lose some weight, but my program is not a weight loss program. Weight loss makes you look like a smaller version of yourself. And if you're like me, I didn't like the way that I look. So if somebody says like, well, yeah, I'm going to help you lose all this weight and you're going to look the same as you do now, but just thinner, no thanks. I don't want that. You know, I want my shoulders to be different. I want my chest to be more formed. I want my triceps and biceps to be thicker and more pronounced, you know. That wasn't going to happen with weight loss, all right? So progressive overload, key, number 1. You've got to have that, but it's got to be with good, strict form, okay? Now I'm going to go through what that means in just a second when we get to number 5, all right? Number 2 is compound movements, and this is something that I see way too often where people are in the gym and they're doing all isolation movements like they're pro bodybuilders. Now, bodybuilders don't even do all isolation movements, but again, that kind of lends to the point is that if you're doing all isolation movements, which I'll explain in a second, which is, really quickly, it's going to be things like tricep kickbacks, bicep curls, instead of doing things like rows, deadlifts, squats, leg press, lat pull down, different things like that, you're not going to get the results that you want, because the idea is when we're prioritizing squats, lunges, rows, presses, deadlifts, hip thrust, those sort of things, and we limit the isolation movements, which are again bicep curls, triceps, kickbacks, etc., we are going to be able to hit more muscle groups in less time, which means that you're burning more calories and building more strength, because you're recruiting more muscles and therefore more muscle fibers, especially if you're using the progressive overload principle that we just talked about. So what I want you to do is to limit the isolation movements. Not that they don't work. I still do things like tricep pushdowns and overhead extensions. But if you're trying to build on muscle mass, size, what have you, and strength, but you're also trying to lose some fat that you're carrying, you don't want to really focus on the isolation movements too much, because it's just not as much bang for your buck. Simply put, you're not going to burn as many calories, you're not going to recruit as many muscle groups in that workout, and the more joints that we use, like again, if I do a bench press where I'm, let's say a squat, because everybody gets a squat more than anything. If I do a squat rather than a leg extension, my knee joint is the only thing working, and I'm working my quads. But if I do a squat, now my hips and my knee joints are both working. I'm recruiting way more muscles. I've got to use my core. I've got to use all of my legs instead of just the quadriceps for the leg extensions. Okay, is this making sense? This means that, again, not only are we recruiting more muscle, we're burning more calories, and thusly, we are also we're burning more fat if you're in a calorie deficit like you should be. So that's number 2, compound movements. I would say, again, maybe 75 to 80% of the time of your workouts is going to be pretty decent for your workouts to make sure that you are putting on good size. Now, again, as your body fat decreases and you're noticing that you put on good muscle and you want to increase the isolation so that you can maybe focus on biceps getting a little thicker, or, your pec development or what have you, great, no problem. But if you've got fat to lose and you're also trying to put on muscle, this is the way to do it. You want to really, really prioritize compound movements, okay? Is that making sense? Let me know in the comments if this is. Number 3 is interval style sets, okay? What does that mean? Well, interval style is going to be where we're going to use supersets, trisets, we're going to use compound sets, we're going to use circuits. These are all great for keeping your heart rate up while you're also building strength and muscle size, okay? Now, another thing that we do is we use what's called active rest. So instead of standing around, waiting, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, you're going to do a low intensity movement, or a movement that's different from what you just did. As an example, let's say that you're doing, chest and back together. If you're doing just for, strictly for the example's sake, if you're doing chest and back, and let's say that, you do what most people do, they're going to do a set of bench press or a set of push-ups, and then they're going to wait. They're just going to walk around, stand a little bit, wait, look at their clock, and then they jump back onto another set. This is not interval style. This is the regular style where you're simply totally resting between your sets, okay? It's not wrong. It's just not going to be as effective for what you're trying to do. Whereas the interval style, where again, a superset is where we're going to go ahead and mix. So we do, and it's going to be, I'm trying to make sure I'm not using all scientific stuff, but you're going to have what's known as an agonist and an antagonist muscle. Your agonist is going to be, if you're doing a chest press, that's your chest, your pecs, that's your agonist muscle. The antagonist muscle is going to be your back in this case, because it's the one that when you're pushing, you're going to contract one and you're going to lengthen the other. And then when you switch to that one, you're going to contract one and lengthen the other, the opposite. So triceps and biceps, agonist and antagonist, if you're working both of those. Hopefully this is making sense. Sometimes I don't have a lay term for agonist and antagonist outside of just saying like, it's the equivalent of doing the opposite. Maybe that's a good way to say it. So if you do chest, the opposite of that is your back, because one's push, one's pull. All right, that's a good way to put it. But what this is that a superset, and a lot of times people are like, supersets, that's old. Yeah, and it works. So if that's you making that comment, go along. Kidding, obviously. I just get that a lot, where people are like, supersets, that's old stuff. Yeah, if you don't know how to use it, you're going to see it as old stuff. But a superset, what we're doing though, is we are using that agonist and antagonist. And the reason why we do agonist and antagonist, where again we're going to use supersetting, is because if I do a chest movement, I'm doing a chest press, a bench press, and I need to rest, if I go to another chest movement, well, I'm not getting any rest there. So that means that I'm failing out even quicker and I have to go lighter on that other movement. But if I do a chest movement and then go to a back movement like a lat pull down or a bent over row or a seated row, now I'm using the antagonist muscle, which hasn't been used as much, and I'm resting this muscle, my pectorals, while I'm working that. That's known as an active rest. Now there's other ways to do this also. Like if you're doing like circuit style or HIIT style training, then you may not do a superset, and instead you're going to do a full active rest, which means you're going to do like a chest press, let's say, and then you go from a chest press to, let's say, jogging in place or doing jumping jacks. This is known as an active rest. So it's more of a rest for the muscles, but now we're activating more of the cardiovascular system in what you're doing, okay? Now, doing that is going to elevate your heart rate, which means that you're probably not going to jump right back into chest again because you're going to need to catch your breath before you do. But if you want to maximize time and still hit more muscles, using the superset where we use agonist and antagonist muscles, that's going to be the ideal way to do that. Now, there is another way to do this also, which is using, instead of a superset, it's a compound set. Now, a compound set is going to be a little bit different because a compound set is where you're going to do two agonist muscles together. So it's like going from, and which is also what a triset is, T-R-I, triset, kind of like triple. And so what's happening there is that we're going like tricep push downs to overhead extension to maybe dips. Probably a bad way to do it. Probably dips and then those. But the point is that would be agonist to agonist to agonist, or agonist to the other. Okay. So typically doing interval style, we're going to not use compound sets. We're going to use supersets. But doing giant sets and whatnot, those things are still effective so that you're active, but you're resting the muscle that you just worked. You get more done. It's going to be more metabolic, meaning that you are going to burn more calories. I'm not going to get into EPOC, which is the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. It's a fancy way of basically saying that when you're working this hard on those muscles, you're not going to be able to get as much oxygen to the muscles as what you need, which means that you're going to need more oxygen even after your workout. And that oxygen uptake system is basically what's causing you to burn more calories long after your workout. And this is one of my secrets that I use with my clients. It's awesome. And it really, really works. So now, the active rest part, though, is instead of standing around, we just do a low-intensity movement, or we switch from an agonist to an antagonist muscle. This is a great way to, again, increase your muscle size because, again, you're going to get a little bit more volume, a little bit more intensity, but you're also going to get more fat burn. Now, again, when I say fat burn, I'm not talking about specifically losing fat. What I mean is that if you're in a calorie deficit or eating the right amount of calories for what you're doing, you have a greater chance, or you're increasing the likelihood of losing more body fat, okay? So we're not going to talk about fat oxidation today or talk about, glucose oxidation. We'll talk about that in another one, but this here, hopefully this makes sense, okay? All right, so that was number 3, interval style sets. Number 4, shorter rest times. Now, obviously, if we're doing interval style, sets, then it is going to decrease your total rest overall throughout the workout in and of itself. So you can use shorter rest times with the interval style, or you can use it on your own. I do both with clients. I do both with myself. So shorter rest times, let's just talk about it as if we're not talking about interval style. We're just talking about keeping shorter rest. So for fat loss and muscle size, you want to keep rest right around 30 seconds if you've got, again, the stamina to do it between your sets, okay? If your focus is pure strength, you want to rest longer, which means 1 to 3 minutes, but you do want to expect slower fat loss and size gains from those workouts. It doesn't mean that you guarantee, like you absolutely won't see the same size gains, but I can assure you, like I've had bodybuilder friends and different coaches and all this stuff, and I've had friends that were in powerlifting and strength, and I'm sure somebody will argue with me here, but I have seen some small guys, very, very small guys, lift way more than me because of their style of focusing on strength and power over focusing on hypertrophy. And I like to focus on both. So I don't only want strength, I don't only want size, I want both. But I'm certainly not going to chase strength and not get the size. Why? Well, because I don't get to wear a shirt that says, hey, I bench pressed 415 pounds once, but I do basically walk around in my skin every day that says I'm confident in how I walk and what I wear and all of that. What I mean by that is that you walk around in your skin all the time, and if you feel insecure, like I have many times over the years, where you feel inadequate, too small, overweight, whatever this is, having the ability to bench press a certain amount or squat a certain amount doesn't change that, because you don't wear a shirt that says, hey, I know I look like my arms aren't very big, but I actually bench press 400 pounds, or hey, I know I've got a little bit of a gut, but have you seen me squat 600? It doesn't happen. So the point is that if you're like me, which again, I assume that you're at least something like me, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video, you're going to want to have a good balance of fat loss, hypertrophy, which is muscle size, and strength, not one or the other, okay? And if that's the case, I recommend working on trying to keep your rest times a little bit shorter. Now again, maybe 45 seconds is where that sweet spot is for you. I really like 30 to 40 seconds for me, and it works really well. So my approach is shorter rests are going to keep workouts efficient, and it's going to maximize fat burning while still building strength and size. It's a great approach, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, number 5, we're talking about time under tension. Now, time under tension is a little bit controversial because sometimes it's kind of like one of those things where people get kind of confused thinking that time under tension is the cure-all or the end-all be-all, and it's not. But if you're missing good tempo or time under tension, meaning that you're controlling the resistance or weight instead of just bouncing the weight around, this is what's going to prevent you from getting the full results that you want to. And even though this is anecdotal, for myself, this is an area where in the gym over the vast 2 decades that I've done this, a lot of people have asked me and they've come up to me not to try and, to cause strife, but they'll say, okay, now I've noticed that, I like the physique that you've got, but I notice you're lifting quite a bit lighter than I am. But it looks like you're really working hard. What gives? What's the deal? Oh yeah, well, what I'm doing, and I'll explain it to him, is that, I'm going to do an explosive rep on the concentric part, and I'm going to use more of time under tension or slow down my tempo on the eccentric. Now the concentric is, for example, if you're doing a curl, it's the part where you're lifting up. That's concentric. That's the part that most people pay attention to, but they don't on the eccentric. So if you're going to slow down your reps on the eccentric where you're slowing down on the way down, you're probably going to have to lighten the weight just a little bit. For me, anywhere from 10 to 20% sometimes you've got to lighten. Now, you might think like, oh my gosh, if I'm not moving as much weight, I'm not going to build as much strength. Not necessarily. If you are controlling that weight rather than bouncing it, you are recruiting more muscle fibers, meaning that instead of using your core and your back to get that weight up, which actually reduces the stress on your biceps if you're doing a curl, instead, this actually puts more stress on the biceps. So if you think that heavy weights are what builds muscle, that's wrong. You need to understand it's the stress on the muscle with progressive overload, meaning that I'm either increasing repetitions, sets, or total weight, or time under tension, meaning that I'm adding more control on what I'm doing, and this is going to recruit more muscle fiber. So for me, it also, like if you're kind of an old guy like me, I'm approaching 40, you're going to want to, prepare your joints, and you're going to want to save your joints. And I used to do the heavy stuff. Again, back in the day, in my late 20s, I put up over 400 on bench. Now I wouldn't dream of doing that. It's not going to feel good to my joints, and to what cost would I want to do that? For me, I don't have any desire. If that's you, great, more power to you. But again, I want to look more like the Jean-Claude Van Damme, the Sylvester Stallone and Rambo and Rocky, Jason Statham, Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. That's the look I'm going for, and most of the men that I've worked with, they want that same thing. Because again, you don't really walk around with a shirt that says how much you squat and bench and deadlift. It's great to be able to lift a lot. It's awesome, especially with good form. But if it's at the expense of how you look, I'm not really willing to do that. So this is why I really, really like to focus on exploding on the concentric. That's where if I'm doing a chest press or a bench press, I'm going to, not that it's going to move fast, but I'm trying to move it fast. So it's explode on the way up, concentric, control on the way down, eccentric, okay? So that's the idea. And this is going to recruit more muscle fibers and increase the intensity of each rep. I assure you, you're going to breathe heavier. You're going to, again, this is going to recruit more of that, what I talked about before, EPOC. So you're going to be in an oxygen deficit for the muscles, which means that you're burning more calories all throughout the day, even after your workout. This is awesome, all right? So you want to use this. So tempo, time under tension is number 5. Number 6, the final one, this one has nothing to do with your workout specifically, but it is to eat, to fuel your workout, not to just lose fat quickly, okay? So again, you're going to eat to fuel your workouts, not to just lose fat quickly. See, that was the thing at the beginning of this video. One reason I didn't understand why I constantly lost so much muscle and so much lean body mass when I would get lean is because I reduced my calories way too much. I was so used to training clients for weight loss and fat loss, as opposed to doing it in a way to preserve lean muscle. Here's what I learned though. If I can help you to preserve that lean body mass, that muscle, your metabolism will be faster, and it means that I can keep your calories higher because you're going to lose more fat with higher calories because muscle is more metabolic, meaning that it's going to require more calories to maintain your muscle than fat does. So if I can stack 10 pounds of muscle on you, number 1, it's smaller than fat. Number 2, it's more metabolically active. You're just going to be better. You're going to be burning more. You're going to put in less work because of this. It's going to be less of a struggle, all the things. So what you need to know is that under eating slows down fat loss, slows down muscle growth, slows down strength gains. You want to focus on eating protein, carbs, and fats to support performance and your recovery. Now, I'm not going to go into the ratios on that, but I do have loads of videos talking about how you can figure your calories to figure out what ratios so that you're getting the right amount of protein without making your stomach upset, and so you can keep on muscle. And here's another little news flash alert. You don't have to cut your carbs in order to lose fat. But if you do want to cut your carbs, you're probably going to lose some muscle size in doing that. One of the key suffixes of carbohydrates is hydrate. That means that with your carbs that you put into your body, it's hydrating and filling those muscles with water. Our body is 70% water. We want carbohydrates. But if you're getting the wrong kind of carbohydrates, which again, you need to go check out one of my other videos on this, you're going to end up having insulin spikes. You're going to store more fat than what you need to, and you're going to blame carbs on it. It's not carbs that are the issue. It's going to be calories or not focusing on the right kind of glycemic index. I'll just leave it at that for this one. So, one practical tip I want to give you is that you want to aim for a balanced meal 1 to 2 hours before your workout to maximize energy and results. Now, if you're doing a HIIT workout, you might need to eat closer to 90 minutes to 2 hours before. For me, I literally, before my weightlifting sessions, I'll eat about 30 to 40 minutes before and I go hit it really hard. If I'm going to go do a bunch of heavy squatting or leg press or something like that, probably not going to eat as heavy, may even put it before a little bit more, meaning might be closer to an hour before that workout for legs, okay? So that I'm not throwing up, getting, queasy and all that stuff. So, hopefully this all makes sense, guys. One thing I've been preaching all day to my clients, knowledge is not power by itself, okay? Knowledge is potential energy. Until you apply that knowledge and you activate it, you apply it in everyday scenarios, like you go out and do this, it's potential energy. You don't have the power until you turn that potential energy into kinetic energy. When it's kinetic, now you're taking real steps. This is where the power is. So don't just hear this stuff today and do nothing with it. Otherwise, it's not power. Now, if you need help, if you need accountability, if you want structure to actually stop spinning your wheels and to finally get where you want to go, shoot me a DM. Let's chat about if and how I can help you and what that structured plan might look like. I've gotten pretty good at doing this. But if you're ready to take your workouts and your results to the next level, and you're tired of guessing like what's really holding you back, and you're tired of spinning your wheels with random plans, I would highly encourage you to take my weight loss unblocker quiz. Now, it's not just for weight loss, but that is what I call it, because the truth is that most people who want to lose fat and build muscle, you need to lose the fat before you can build the muscle. Because if you start putting on more muscle when your body fat is too high, you're going to look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You're going to have muscle underneath of the fat, so you're not going to look better. you're going to look worse. And I assure you, I've seen this with clients, especially guys, where they're like, no. I'm good. I feel okay. And then as they start doing this, they look in the mirror or we check their body fat and they're going, dang, this is way more body fat than what I thought. I really don't like how I feel. Well, yeah, we needed to lose the body fat first. So the point is that this weight loss unblocker quiz, it's free. It's going to show you exactly what is sabotaging your progress. Plus, you're going to get a personalized fat loss report with actionable tips to finally build muscle, burn fat, and achieve the physique that you want. It only takes about 60 seconds to do, and it's so effective. And you're going to get a full report that gives you that's personalized based on the answers that you gave in that quiz. So it's really awesome. So you can click the link. It's going to be in the description box, or you can comment quiz, and I will send that directly to you. Either way is totally cool. So remember, burning fat and getting stronger is not about doing random workouts or random things and hoping for the best. It's about working smarter with a plan that actually delivers, and that's structure and that's consistency. So my question for you is, which of these strategies are you already using? I'm sure you're using maybe at least one. And which ones have you not tried that you want to try next? Go ahead and drop that below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And the other thing is, don't forget to just go ahead and take that quiz to uncover what's holding you back and to get started on actually crushing your goals. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. Remember, this is not powerful until you apply it. If you need help, reach out, message me, take the quiz, whatever you want to do. I will help you so that you can actually get some structure and some legs to the system, to the plan, so you can get some great results. So thank you guys so much. I will catch you guys all on